Well, I want to welcome everybody to the 2021 Dr. Martin Luther King Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Writing Contest Winners Reception. My name is Amanda Cook Fesperman, and I am the co-chair of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee at Illinois Valley Community College. Just a little background about the contest before we get started. We started this contest, I believe, 18 years ago, and we've been pleased to have it every year since then. We've changed the parameters and what's included over time. But basically, we invite students, all students at any of our campuses and locations to submit essays, poems, short stories, research papers, whatever they want to submit about some aspect of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then I collect those entries. I take the names off, and we have a 3-judge panel from the diversity committee who then judges those mostly on content. And then they send me their scores, I total them up, and I get to contact the winners. So for many years, we had ties, and then we had several years where we didn't, and this year we're back to having ties. And I think what ties really tell us is that we really had a lot of really good entries submitted, and the judges really struggled with differentiating those scores. So we're really pleased this year to have 5 winners, and I'll be introducing them as they participate. Now, in a normal non-COVID year, I'd be standing up at the front of the room, the person would present, and then at the end, I would shake your hand, which I'm never going to do again. And I would hand you a check and a certificate from the DEI committee. Unfortunately, I can't do that, but I do want you to know that the checks are in the process of being processed, the certificates are printed, and they will be mailed to our winners instead of handed out this year. So we do have 5 participants. Unfortunately, Marlene Vasquez, and so she was gracious enough to agree to do a recording and to send us a YouTube link. And so this is her untitled poem.
It never seems to stop baffling me how love seems to work. Whether it's the love a mother has for their child, a person has for their friend, or even just a random hobby, even leaning into a romantic stance, it's beautiful to see how connected people are. I felt that love many times, felt the warmth that has filled me with so much joy from loving my family and friends, loving watching TV shows and drawing, loving what the world has to offer. However, it took a while to be happy with the love that was given to me and the love I felt towards the world. It started with the first love. I can't be sure of this love, but I want to believe I once fell in love with someone. I want to believe it was a romantic love, even if it has changed throughout the years. I fell in love with a girl. A girl was sweet and kind, a little weird and chaotic, but always caring towards what she did. She had naturally brown hair. She dyed it when she got the chance, and I loved the color. She had braces for a while, and even then I loved her smile. She was shorter than me, and I loved running my hands through her hair. She showed her affection by touch, and I loved holding her hands. Yet I was troubled coming to terms with the fact that I had loved her the way that I had, simply because I was a woman as well. I knew love was something special between 2 people, generally speaking 2 people of the opposite sex. I thought maybe I was going crazy, having started liking her at a young age. Maybe I was confusing admiration for the romantic type of feelings. I was never told I could love a woman the way a man did, so I pushed my liking for the girl aside. And when I had brought up the topics, I was turned away, told that I was merely confused and didn't know what I was talking about. I believed it too, so I stopped doing many of the things that let me love her as freely as I did. It was hard because it would hurt to think about not being with her, not getting to hold her hands. As I was told, it was disgusting to see 2 girls show affection for each other. I hated not being able to hug her or talk to her like I normally would, simply because I felt the pressure to get rid of the feelings that plagued me. I was told it was wrong, and it took me many years to figure out it was okay to love her the way that I did. It took me a while to really become aware it was okay to allow myself to fall in love, not only with her, but with the way I loved the world. It was difficult to fall in love with what you were given, as you grow up and realize how different the world is from what you originally thought. There was a saying that went something along the lines of, it's better to have loved than never to have loved at all. And yet I always doubted that. Whether it was loving a family member who you would eventually lose, or always have the chance to. It was loving something you would eventually lose interest. If it was loving someone romantically, you could end up hating each other. If there was the same gender as you, you'd get hated by others. If you got a pet you adore, their lifespan tends to be short. If you fall in love with the world, with what the world is, will the bloodshed and hatred that spreads throughout races and genders really be worth it? Is the hurt you end up really worth it? Wouldn't you rather avoid it than never deal with the pain? I believe that was the correct way to go, unaware for so long that it's not. It's always something better to look forward to. There's always be the happiness that happens before the hurt, and even the memories will remain. The happiness you felt in those instances of pure bliss can't be exchanged or replicated. Loving someone or something so freely can be liberating in so many ways. Instead of looking at the bleak end of it, it's always better to look at the ability that gives you to feel love, happiness, regret, sadness, anger, and everything in between, because that's what makes us human. Through the trials and tribulations, the anguish and admiration, being human is a beautiful thing, and you should love every single aspect of what makes you who you are.
All right. Well, thank Marlene for sharing her poem, and let me take this off of Stop Share. And we'll go back to the Brady Bunch screen, which is what I call it. So if you're just coming in, thank you and welcome. So that was Marlene Vasquez, one of our third place winners for the 2021 Dr. Martin Luther King contest. So our next person that we would invite to come and speak is Jenna Grabowski, and Jenna is going to be reading her entry, Representation of Diversity in the Media. So Jenna, I'll turn it over to you.
Think back to the last time you watched a movie. Did you see someone that looked like you? Was your skin color represented? Unfortunately, for many, the answer to this question is no. Diversity in Hollywood and pop culture is fairly limited. This creates underrepresentation of almost half the United States. Yeah.
Jenna, there's a problem with your sound. Do you have a microphone? Or is it just using the computer sound?
I have the microphone on my...
It's causing a distorted sound that we can't really hear or understand what you're saying. I know technology is always so much fun.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we'll be able to hear you just off the computer sound. Go ahead, sorry.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Okay, sorry about that. I'll start over. Okay. Think back to the last time you watched a movie. Did you see someone that looked like you? Was your skin color represented? Unfortunately for many, the answer to this question is no. Diversity in Hollywood and pop culture is fairly limited. This creates underrepresentation of almost half of the United States population. Absence of different skin colors in media can have negative effects on not only people of color, but society as a whole. Representation of all skin colors in the media is imperative. In 2015, the average U.S. resident consumed traditional and digital media for about 15.5 hours each day, says Nancy Ewan, author of How Racial Stereotypes in Popular Media Affect People and What Hollywood Can Do to Become More Inclusive. She continues, in the same year, 8 to 12-year-old children consumed an average of 6 hours of media a day, and teens consumed 9 hours. This incredibly high amount of media consumption shapes how U.S. residents see the world. Racial imagery in the media has cumulative effects on society. Of the little representation of people of color that there is, most groups are portrayed as villains, sidekicks, and sexual objects, while the role of the hero is predominantly given to white men. The subordination of these groups in films can lead to people of color developing self-esteem issues. Racial images packaged as entertainment can also skew the way the viewers understand and categorize. Ewan explains, popular media can have a negative impact on whites' perceptions of people of color, and racial stereotypes in film and television can exacerbate pre-existing racist fears. People tend to rely on media stereotypes to formulate ideas about people outside of their own race when there is a lack of contact between racial groups. Being that we are consumed by media almost all day in this time period, it greatly influences the way we think and perceive the world and others around us. It's important to change our views as the world around us changes. According to the 2020 UCLA Hollywood Diversity Report, written by Dr. Darnell Hunt and Dr. Anna Cristina Ramon, the minority share of the U.S. population is growing by nearly 0.5% each year. People of color constitute 40% of the U.S. population in 2018 and slightly more in 2019. People of color will become the majority within a couple of decades. Despite this great proportion, representation of people of color is still failing to catch up. Doctors Hunt and Ramon go on to say, people of color only make up about 27.6% of film leads, 15.1% of film directors, and 32.7% of total actors. The stats are below that of white counterparts. Despite this, films containing any diverse representation have proven to receive better feedback from America's audience. As the population of the U.S. diversifies, the want for diverse films increases. New evidence from 2018 and 2019 supports findings from earlier reposts in the diversity report, suggesting that America's increasingly diverse audiences prefer diverse film content, state Dr. Ramon and Dr. Hunt. In 2018, films with casts that were from 21% to 30% minority enjoyed the highest median global box office receipts, while films with casts that were from 41% to 50% minority enjoyed this distinction in 2019. Films with the least diverse cast performed the poorest in the same years. Dr. Hunt and Dr. Ramon also claim in 2019, minorities bought the majority of tickets for 8 of the top 10 films, as well as half of the tickets for a 9th top 10 film. People of color contribute greatly to the sales of the industry, therefore, diverse films are a preference for most. Although the media has failed to represent people of color in the past, the future is looking up. Dr. Hunt and Dr. Ramon write, since the previous report from 2019, people of color posted gains relative to their white counterparts in each of the 5 key Hollywood employment arenas examined in the film sector. The inclusion of people of color in films and the media has increased significantly and should continue to improve. Iconic films such as Black Panther, which has an African-American director and a predominantly Black cast, have provided opportunities and hope for people of color everywhere. Having a Black superhero shows people of color, especially children of color, that they are just as equal as their white counterparts. It gives them something to be proud of, someone that looks like them to look up to, and the freedom of knowing they can do whatever they put their minds towards. The media influences how we think and view the world greatly. It's important that it accurately depicts the real-life population and the real-life diversity of America and the world. The people in the media should be pushing for this to become our full reality. Children of all colors should be able to see themselves as a hero. Representation of diversity matters.
Sorry, great. Thank you so much. I did a recording last night with an alumni, Jabril Church, who did a talk. It's available on our website now on Lovecraft Country. And he talks a lot about the same topic that you're talking about. So if you haven't had a chance to see it, and I say this for everybody, check it out because he does a really great job. So thank you so much for sharing that important information. Bear with me as I try to figure out, and this is why Ellen is here to like rescue me, how I figure out how to take Jenna off of the main screen. And there we go. Okay, that should take you off of the spotlight now. I hope. We'll see. So our next presenter is Kirsten Chevakis, and she is also a 3rd place winner, and she is going to be reading Civil Disobedience and Black Lives Matter. Kirsten, are you here?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Civil Disobedience is a political piece by Henry David Thoreau and speaks mainly of decreasing central government power. He also speaks about his views that the power belongs to the people and restoring what we have lost or what we may in the future. This closely follows the Black Lives Matter movement because they are acting on what Thoreau believes. This includes stating the problems in the current government, reforming an unsuitable government, and bringing more power to the people. Thoreau pushes the idea that the government should be for the people, by the people. He claims that the people should let it be known what kind of government is needed and would gain support and respect. This process is exactly what the Black Lives Matter movement is hoping to undergo. They want to change the way people of color are currently viewed and warrant them to be undeniably equal. BBC News, referencing Professor Abdullah, states, she says the gains have been achieved not by negotiating with police forces, which the organization refuses to do, but by taking to the streets and making sure the police know they are being scrutinized. To explain the goals for this movement, this directly follows Thoreau's ideals of letting one's government know what needs to be changed. Thoreau also claims that government is best but an expedient, but most governments are usually, and all governments are sometimes, inexpedient. This states that all governments are going to be at some point impractical, unsuitable, or inadvisable. The Black Lives Matter movement highlights one of the ways that this is true for the United States government. They are trying to let it be known that our government right now is unsuitable, especially for Black Americans, because it is violent. Unarmed Black people are being murdered, and little to no government action is taking place to bring down those who have done it. It has been overly noticeable that the police shooting Black people have been released with no charges, and that one and that is one factor the Black Lives Matter movement is hoping to change. When answering what Black Lives Matter goals are, one response was, it's an awareness campaign dedicated to highlighting systemic violence by police and private citizens against Black citizens in the United States. This just further proves that Thoreau's views guide what the Black Lives Matter members are hoping to achieve. Within the first paragraph of Civil Disobedience, Thoreau shares his view that government is best which governs least, which is the main point throughout the work. Thoreau is stating that he believes the government is best when it is in the least amount of power. He believes the power belongs to the people, which is something Black Lives Matter members are trying to utilize. These protesters have been trying to communicate their distaste in how the government is treating Black Americans and the murders associated with them. The Black Lives Matter movement members are attempting to restore power to the people, much like how Thoreau believes it should have been all along. They're protesting the murders and trying to find justice for the victims. They're hoping to lessen the power of central government and even defund the police, primarily to keep assault weapons out of their grasp. These goals all follow Thoreau's views, making them very closely related. Overall, Thoreau's views very closely follow those of the Black Lives Matter movement. He speaks mostly about the ideals of government, while Black Lives Matter is putting those views into action. All aspects of his work are very closely related, but there are still main points such as letting the needed change be known, pushing for reform in unsuitable conditions, and bringing more power to the people, all of which the Black Lives Matter movements follow in hopes of bringing justice to murder victims and having Black Americans be treated as equals.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. One of the things I really loved, and especially as the chair of the DEI, is to see how the current events and concerns about equity, diversity, and inclusion are being reflected in the work that students are doing in a variety of disciplines across this campus. So I really appreciate you sharing that work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up will be our second place winner, and that's Dylan Zupak. Dylan had a really long paper, and he said, I really don't think I want to read the whole thing, and I don't blame him, having presented really long papers at conferences before. So he wrote a paper called The War on Drugs is a War on Black Lives, and Dylan is going to share with us sort of a summary of some of his findings and his thoughts on that work. So Dylan, are you ready?
Hello. So my paper, it's a 9-page research paper, and I originally wrote it for English Composition 2, and I wrote it after watching Ava DuVernay's 13th on Netflix. And in my paper, I talk about how the war on drugs began as a war on Black lives, as per the title. And basically I talk about how it was started with ill intentions all the way in the beginning in 1971, when Richard Nixon first declared a war on drugs. It was intended to be a war on Black people. There's actually a quote from one of his policy advisors, John L. Richmond, who says, "We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or Black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and Blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities." And then I go on later to talk about how the first bills that supported the war on drugs, like the 1984 Comprehensive Crime Control Act, they were very, very much unfairly slanted against Black people. And an example I give is in the 1986 Anti-Drug Abuse Act, and that is the 100-to-1 ratio, which stipulated that the possession of 500 grams of powdered cocaine was equivalent of having just 5 grams of crack cocaine for meeting the mandatory 5-year minimum sentence requirement. And I talk about how one of the reasons for this was because Black people, people of color who tended to live in poor inner cities, they tended to be able to afford crack cocaine, which was a cheaper alternative, whereas rich people used powdered cocaine, and it was like more of a rich drug. And there's no scientific basis for the 100-to-1 ratio, but they put that in place for no visible reason, just to hurt Black people. I also talk about how today we have the opioid crisis, and people treat opioid addicts with much more compassion than they do like crack addicts. And that is because crack cocaine was viewed more as a Black problem, and that the way the media treated it, they dehumanized crack addicts because they were Black and they didn't care about them as much. I go on to talk about how, there's more bills. There's the 1994 Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act, and they dehumanized Black youth, calling them super predators and stuff like that. And then I go on to talk about how the repercussions of this is that now the US, we're back at where we started with, in 1865, we had like, I think 800,000 Black people in chattel slavery. And in 2011, we were getting close to being back up at that number, but then it slowed down after that. So, and I talk about how modern prison labor is very much akin to slavery in the 1800s and how it's just as bad. And yep, that's pretty much my paper. I talk about stuff like that.
Excellent. I'm old, so I remember all those laws. And I remember growing up in the mid 1980s and, the scare tactics about, crack cocaine. We were told if you use crack cocaine, you will become instantly addictive. It's 10 times more addictive than, regular cocaine, and you're way more likely to overdose. And so growing up, hearing those things, I, of course, never associated or made the association in my youth with, well, this is a racist policy, until I got older and did the kind of research that you just did and heard people talk about it, and then realized, no, this wasn't true, right? They did this intentionally to incarcerate African Americans. And you referenced the film 13th. If anybody is listening and you haven't had a chance to watch that, I do believe it's free on Netflix. It's a really good film about mass incarceration and the war on drugs and the ways in which that had a negative impact and a lasting negative impact on communities of color. So thank you so much, Dylan, for sharing that. I greatly appreciate your time that you did the research for that and sharing that really important information with us. So thank you. Okay, so our last presenter is our first place winner, and this is Grace McCormick, and she has an entry called Take a Step Back, the Role of the White Ally. So I'm going to turn it over to Grace.
The irony is not lost on me that I'm a white woman writing about diversity during Black History Month, no less. How can I know anything about what it is like to be Black or a person of color or the struggles that they go through? The short answer, I can't, and I never will. As a white person growing up in a small, predominantly white town, I did not experience diversity or truly understand race until I was almost in high school. Of course, there were units on the civil rights movement and Martin Luther King Jr. projects throughout elementary and middle school, but how can a teacher that looks like me teach a classroom full of students that look like me that there is an indescribable other and that life was much harder for them than it was for me? I sympathized like any big-hearted child would, but I didn't understand. I lived in a bubble and I never thought to try and look outside of it. When I was in the 8th grade, Michael Brown of Ferguson, Missouri was unjustly shot and killed by police officer Darren Wilson. The 18-year-old Black man's death sparked protests across the city, gathering both the nation's attention and mine. All of a sudden, it was like an entirely new world opened up to me, and it was not one that I liked. I could not comprehend how cruel the world could be to those different than I am, and I could not understand why people were racist. And to be honest, I still don't. And as I grew up, I listened to my Black friends, classmates, and coworkers talk about how they had been affected by racism and hatred, and each time my heart broke. I wanted so badly to fix their problems, to stand up for them and put a stop to the racism and the brutality and the danger, but I couldn't. I had never felt more helpless. So I shouted about it. I argued, I fought, I preached, and I felt good about myself for doing it. Look at me being a good ally to my friends, I thought. I'm doing the right thing. And at the time, I genuinely believed that I was. I was the loudest voice in the room, but I shouldn't have been. I had spent so much time telling people what I thought that I never took the time to listen to the people who were actually living the life I was protesting for. I could not be a genuine ally without first taking a step back and allowing Black voices to be heard first and foremost. By removing myself from the spotlight, I could do what really mattered. I could listen and I could learn. And as I did, I found myself coming to a deeper understanding of the many types of discriminations Black people face in their daily lives, and how I could take steps to prevent as many of them as possible, or help educate my peers without stepping on the toes of those who should be front and center. As a white person in a position of privilege, I realize that I will never truly understand what it means to be Black. I can march, I can educate, I can listen, I can do everything to become the best ally possible, but I will never live that life. It's my job now to step back into the shadows and do my part to make the world a better place, but it is my responsibility to do so quietly. I need to speak up, not speak over. Dr. King fought to make this world equal, and I truly believe that one day it will be. Steps have been made and paths have been forged, and I will do everything I can to ensure that humanity keeps moving forward to the goal of unity. I can only hope that others will do the same. Thank you.
Oh, I didn't mute myself ever. Okay, well, I don't have to unmute myself. Thank you so much, Grace. I think this is, you started out with saying, this is Black History Month, and we didn't have all of our speakers on camera, but generally during Black History Month, we rarely have Black students who enter, and so it's a struggle, right, to sort of think about, how do we honor Dr. King's legacy? And you raised some really excellent points, which is that, when we're in spaces when there aren't Black voices to be heard, we can be those voices. But when we're in spaces where there are Black voices to be heard, absolutely, we should be raising those Black voices up above our own. And you've realized that a lot earlier than I did. So excellent. I just wanted to see if you wanted to take a quick moment to talk about the organization that you're donating your $100 winnings to. It's Young, Black, and Lit. Is that right?
Yes, it's an organization based in Evanston, Illinois, and it helps distribute books featuring characters, Black characters, characters of color, of all different races, to schools that may not have the budget to get these kinds of books. And I think it's a really awesome organization. It distributes them all over Cook County, so the Chicago area, surrounding cities there. Thank you for posting the link down below. Yeah, I definitely recommend checking it out. It's an awesome organization. I'm so excited that I was able to, donate my winnings there, and hopefully they get a whole bunch of really good books.
And I really appreciate that, in the 18 years we've been doing this, nobody's ever done that. Nobody's ever donated their winnings anywhere. And that's not, a slight on anyone else. People, it's hard times and you might need the money, but it's a great thing to use resources if you don't need them to help others. So thank you so much for doing that. Well, I want to thank everybody who came and were able to hear our speakers live. We will have, I said, we will record this and we will post this on the DEI webpage for the rest of our Black History Month events. There's a really exciting event. So some of the events we're doing this year, we partnered, not literally partnered, but we just sort of using some of the resources from other places. And there's a really great program that I cannot wait to see on Sunday. It's the last event at 6 o'clock. And it's going to be an author's talk. And one of my favorite African authors, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, is going to be speaking. So if you haven't had a chance to check out the rest of the Black History Month calendar, I think Ellen put the DEI link. Did you put that up there, Ellen? Did I see that? If not, it's just www.ivcc.edu/DEI. Our entire calendar is there and you can see any of our upcoming events. So thank you again to our presenters. Congratulations on your work and have a great weekend. Thank you.